Maggie. Welcome to Experiments in Crafting. Tonight I've got a couple of project updates to share with you guys. And I ordered some yarn. So I showed this mermaid a little while back, and I'll get to that in just a second. But I started on a different amigurumi that a friend of mine asked for her daughter, and sort of asked and I sort of offered, but it was a gray rabbit in a tutu. And I started looking through yarn, and it turned out that I had a really, really terrible selection of gray yarns. Really at all, but also just in the weight range that I needed. So I was looking for a dark-ish gray, and trying to find something that would work, and I really was coming up empty. I actually had hoped that the stuff that I'd ordered from Ice Yarns was going to work out, but either I wasn't paying close enough attention, or I'm not sure what. I mean, that's probably the reality, is that I wasn't paying close enough attention. But I ended up ordering a whole bunch of 2-weight, which is sport weight, which is fine, but would take a really long time to work up. And so I was really aiming for something really in the DK weight, or even on the heavy side of the DK weight. Starting to get into a worsted weight. So I went on, what I decided that I really wanted was the sheep's yarn, the stonewashed yarn, that comes from the Netherlands. And normally I order that from Wool Warehouse, but they currently are not shipping internationally. So I looked around and I found a couple other websites. They did not have nearly as good of a selection, but I ordered from a couple of them, and so I've got that yarn to share with you. Plus, things are starting to very slowly open back up around here, and one of those places was Hobby Lobby, and I stopped in, and they'd clearanced out a whole bunch of stuff. Not really very much yarn that got clearanced out, but a whole lot of accessory type things, and so I've got some of that stuff to show you guys as well tonight. So I'll get into that in just a minute. I was going to share my mermaid with you. So I showed this a while back, and I was working on it, and this is some from patterns and some from just kind of figuring it out. And then, just a little bit of trial and error, I guess. So there's the mermaid. For those of you who are new, the inspiration for this mermaid came from this mermaid that I found at Walmart at roughly Valentine's. And so I had one of these. There's 2 more over against the wall there with different hair colors, but roughly it's a Beanie Baby that just has like a round bottom and can sit on a ledge. And so they don't sit amazingly, but if you get them just right, they kind of sit on an edge and they have a tail that drapes. And so that's what I wanted to do with this mermaid. My mermaid is a little more heavily weighted and sits a tiny bit better if I've got her head correct. So the yarn that I've got here is, this is Karen's birthday suit, I think is the name of this. It's a simplicity yarn. This is from, I'll bring it a little closer to me so it's a little better on the screen. The hair color is 100% cotton from Sidrar. It's a brand or a line of cotton called Happy, and they're these little bitty 100% cotton balls. I think I ended up using 3 or 4 of them on the hair. And then the tail and the body, or the top, I guess, are from Hobby Lobby. They're, what is the name of that yarn? Cotton, sugar wheel cotton, I believe. And so I started with this green color and I worked up to the purple. And then there was a different purple in there that I ended up just winding off and balling up. It was kind of like a dark pinky purple that transitioned into this pink. And I didn't really like the purple offset by itself, but I ended up liking the pink. So kind of mermaidy, fishy colors in the tail. And then there's a really good match between this color here and the hair color, which I thought kind of tied it together. And so that's where I was going with that. I tried putting like a nose and a mouth, and it just never looks better to me. I've seen dolls that do look better. My technique must just not be great. So I kind of just like the just eyes look. And that's working out. I had to do some interesting things with the hair. So I found a pattern for a different amigurumi doll, and I paid for that, and I used parts of the hair, but then there were parts that I really didn't care for the way that they had done them. So I really liked the bangs, but they had straightened every piece of the curly hair, and I think it just looks more mermaidy with all these like seaweedy looking curls. But one of the interesting things that I ended up doing was, so the hair is made in 3 pieces here. So there's a piece down the center that is a part. And so that is a chain that you work both sides. You work long chain sections. Well, actually, it's long single crochet sections up and down the chain. And so you've got this like part that makes the part in the hair. I mean, you know, like as you part your hair. Then underneath, if I dig in here a little ways, there's a part that's made around a circle. So there's a piece here, and you can see there, if I didn't put this top piece in, there would be an open circle in the center. So this is like a disc with hair coming off the outside. And so it would look like a toupee. Like it would be a round disc and then hair coming off. And so you need this extra piece in here to kind of fill in so that you get like a natural hair part. But what I didn't like was, even when I had both of those pieces on, the back of the head was very open, and I could see all of the mermaid's like head, like skull. And so what I did was I made like a half round piece. I'm trying to pick the pieces out of here so you can see this. There we go. So I made this half round piece on the back and then put all the curls around the bottom edge. And so that kind of gave another layer to the hair, but it also filled in some of the, like, let me turn this, filled in some of the open, exposed, like, skin color. So you can see underneath there's, like, open skull. And so this would have been, like, a really severe undercut if it didn't have the hair here. And so that's what I did there. The bang pieces curled up just as badly as the rest of the hair with the style, like the way that I did this. But what I ended up doing was just taking them and putting just a little dab of glue on the back side and a slightly larger dab right at the end. And then I just pinned every single bang down. And so there's 10 of those. And I just picked a place for them to part so that they weren't like straight across like a bowl cut. And so that's what I did with the hair there. The top was just 2 layers of double crochet, and then I added basically some chains so that I could tie a piece in the back like a halter top, and just sewed some buttons on to keep it closed. And then the tail was the trickiest part, and that was just totally freehand. So I just started making some sort of rib pattern that looked like it was going to be roughly tail-shaped. And then when I worked this back and forth. And then when I got to the end, and I was happy with the, like, fins portion, I turned and worked up the edge, worked a couple rows of single crochet, and then started doing, started working in the round. And on the front side, I did crocodile scales. And on the back side, I did flat single crochet. Actually, I had to alternate single and double crochet. I was trying to remember if it was single or half double. So I had to alternate single and double crochet because the crocodile scales are taller than single crochet stitches. And so I just kind of made it work. Um, and I had to add a little bit of extra height in here so that it could round around the bottom, and still lay very nicely. So I could maybe do a little bit more work in here to keep her hair like where I want it, but I kind of like that it's a little bit crazy and like I said, seaweedy. So so that's that. She's finally done, and I can move on to a different amigurumi project. And I've actually got a couple in mind that I'm working on right now. One of which is a different doll, and then the other one is like I said, the bunny and the tutu that I'm working on for a friend's daughter. So I don't think I said hello and, welcome to everybody. So thank you for joining me tonight. Sorry we weren't around to stream last week, but I'm glad that you're all back and here to watch tonight. Looks like Gail, Copperpot, and Xana all saying hello in the comments, and Xana loves the mermaid, and the colors are awesome. I really like them. Like I said, this was a cake of the sugar wheel cotton. I was trying to remember. They're also sugar wheel minis now, which are the same yarn but just shorter color changes. So the sugar wheel cotton is really, really long. So this whole tail I think took about half a ball. I think there's like 3 more color changes left that I didn't use. Like I said, there was a purple between this purple and this pink, and then there was a darker pink, or a coral or pink, I guess, an orange, and I think a yellow, and then like a limey green that probably connects back to this green. But yeah, so I was I'm pretty happy with the colors and how they worked up. They're kind of beachy and kind of, my go-to colors, so I'm pretty pleased. So all right, I am going to slide the mermaid off a little ways, and I've got a few more project updates. So we did that big Ice Yarns unboxing, and I haven't got to work with much of the yarn yet, but my husband did make a quick knitting, like a circular knitting machine hat. And so this is just a hat from a ball of the Rosetto worsted yarn. So that is an Ice Yarns yarn. It's a 4-weight. It's 30% wool, 70% acrylic, 100-gram ball, 200 meters. It's pretty nice feeling yarn, and so this gives you some idea of how it works up. So it's a striping yarn. You can see the different color changes happening here. And I think it worked up really nicely. I think we were a little bit short on rows. So normally he works 140 or 150 rows, and then we double the hat over and sew it together. But it seemed to work up with a little less like tension to it or something, because the hat does like stretch a little wider, and I'll show you another hat here. But it fits very comfortably. So even though it was short a few rows, yeah, it does. It feels really nice. It was not super grabby like some of the other. So we had ordered a bunch of the Rockstar and Rockstar colors. And what's that? Oh, yeah, and Universe, all from Ice Yarns. And they were pretty terribly grabby. They're all filled tube style yarns with like fuzz poking out, and they just grabbed and grabbed and grabbed, and you just could really barely use them for the knitting machine without having to pull a long chain and then use that up and then pull another long chain. Like you couldn't just like feed sort of casually. You actually had to sort of free the yarn to be worked with. And then the finished product didn't feel amazing. It was still pretty grabby against your skin. Like I can feel my hands are pretty dry, and this still feels very nice. I'm positive if I found, here's that hat actually right here. So this is, I think, the universe yarn. And it's so grabby. It still looks amazing, very shiny and cool, but is very, very grabby. I can feel it catching my fingernails actually on the edges, though that's not probably unique to this yarn. It also did have this problem where it had like big splotches of the fuzz that would show through, and so there's like a big knot of it right here, kind of ruining the pattern. You can see there's like a big black dot. That can be hidden by just turning the hat inside out and flipping the cuff the other way. But yeah, this so far has been one of the nicer yarns that we've worked with from Ice Yarns, at least on the circular knitting machine. But like I said, I haven't had a chance to work with it all that much. I've got a bunch of the amigurumi weight yarns pulled out to work with, so I want to give those a try. I ordered a bunch of cotton. The problem with amigurumi is that they're fiddly, and so I can do the bulk of one in an evening. You know what I mean? I can make most of the like pieces, but it's doing all the little detail work, making little arms and positioning eyes and doing all of the nitpicky stuff that takes so much time. So that is Rosetto worsted. We also ordered some Rosetto, which I think was a DK weight. But that is the worsted version. And then we also did a big unboxing from Premiere. I don't have a second ball of this color, but this was Universal Yarns Classic Shade. So Universal Yarns is some sort of side offshoot Premiere brand. They sell it on their website. You can buy it from there. I haven't seen it in a store anywhere. I don't know if it's a company that they bought out. Like, I think they've started selling some of the Stitch Studio by Nicole. And so anyway, the yarn was on there. They had a big sale. I bought some of it. The classic shades was interesting. I think it worked up fine. It was a little bit tricky because it's roughly a single ply yarn. And so it behaves very much like a single ply yarn. It's weak and a little bit fussy. It's kind of grabby. Yeah, and it untwists as it works, which is relatively standard on a single ply yarn. But then it puffs up and it gets very, very weak. And so you do have to baby it a little bit. Also had big puff knots. Like there's a couple oh, that's right. It did have knots in it. That was the biggest complaint, I think, on this yarn. I'll see if I can find one. We did our best to hide them inside. There should be a big, like, yellow puff that's in the wrong spot. Like, it's real obvious. Yeah, I don't see any massive knots, but you can see that it just looks very slubby. Maybe let me turn it inside out so that we're not catching that white and yellow against the light. We're gonna switch camera angles when we get it zoomed in here, but it's very lumpy. I don't know, it should be pretty obvious on screen, but you can see all these spots where it just, like, the yarn would untwist a little bit and puff up, and so you'd get this really thick and thin looking effect, which is fine if that's what you're going for, but it's not a very uniform looking yarn. And then this colorway was fine. It looked cooler online. I'm not a big fan of this, like, white melon color that is in the middle here. You got a little bit of this on this side where it's like neon highlighter colors on the side with, like, again, white in the middle. So it's not my favorite colorway. The yarn itself seems fine. I also never had a yarn shed that much. Oh, okay, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, so my husband, when he made this, he was wearing a black t-shirt, and he ended up just completely covered in neon rainbow fuzz. to the point where I think he went and changed his shirt because it was just like shedding all over the place. So it did shed pretty bad. If you're super interested in one of the colors, it's a weird yarn, and like I said, I got it for super cheap. It might be interesting if you've got a specific application for it, but there are probably yarns that are better that you could do, a similar thing with. The self-striping is interesting, but not terribly unique anymore. The Classic Shades Frenzy, on the other hand, seems to be a different kind of yarn. So, don't lump those necessarily together. I don't have any feedback yet on the Frenzy yarn. But yeah, the Classic Shades is okay. Let's see. A few more comments. Bridget loving the Mermaid. Joyce just joining in to say hello. Tracy said, would it be considered a roving yarn? Yeah, it is a roving style yarn. Sometimes roving, so there's a couple of different meanings for roving. Some people consider roving to be super heavy yarns that haven't really been twisted much yet. And they're like a 7 yarn, and they call that category roving. And then there are people who say roving style, which is basically this. It's a single ply. It's very, very lightly twisted. You have to baby it a little bit. It generally tends to shed. You've got these thicks and thins because it's not evenly twisted. It is definitely that kind of yarn. If for those of you who have worked with Red Heart, Boutique Unforgettable, or Lion Brand Landscapes, though I think both of those are more consistently twisted. This one's very thick and thin. But yeah, there's a lot of these roving style yarns. They get a bad reputation because they are a bit difficult to work with. Hard to pull your stitches back out. Hard to see your stitches as you're working. They're not good beginner yarns. So yeah, they're interesting and they're different to work with, and they offer a unique challenge, but they're not real beginner friendly and often are pretty difficult to work with. Bridget's saying that he wears them, can't get my husband to wear any. Yeah, he does not actually generally wear very many hats. I don't actually know if you've worn any of the ones you made, except maybe the Red Heart one. Yeah, the Heatwave hat. He likes making them because the circular knitter is kind of fun to just use.
The Ice Yarns one is probably the only one that is close to big enough.
Yeah, that's... So what he was saying is that the Ice Yarns hat is really the only one close enough to big enough to wear. The problem with circular knitting is that you have a fixed number of needles, and so that makes a fixed diameter object. So unless you get something super stretchy, and I'm not actually even sure what made this Ice Yarns hat so much like I can stretch it to here pretty comfortably, where this hat I can get to about here, which I know that doesn't probably look terribly different, but it's a pretty drastic difference as far as how far it will stretch. But you're kind of, and even if I lay them down, you can see, if I put them on top of each other, like where they sit, back them up, you can see that they're seemingly different sizes, despite the fact that they were made on the same machine. And so I'm not totally sure what exactly the difference is, because we just have been using worsted weight, and I don't know that we know all that much about the circular knitting. But it is cool to be able to work up a yarn and see how the color changes work before, getting into them with crochet. It also gives me a quick way to turn around some feedback. Like, this is going to crochet differently, but not so differently that it's like it's not going to stop shedding. It's not going to be more consistent if I crochet. It's still going to be thick and thin. It's still going to shed. It's still going to clearly be, shedding and like hard to pull your stitches, hard to see your stitches. It's still going to be a weak yarn. So it gives us a lot of feedback to give you guys without me having to make full crochet projects. And that's just a limitation of my time. The circular knitting takes, I don't know, maybe 40 minutes or something, maybe not even that long.
Probably 15 or 20 minutes if I don't take a break.
20 minutes if he goes really, really fast and doesn't take a break, but it really doesn't take long to make one of these. Probably 40 minutes total with me having to tighten up the ends and sew them together. That's really probably the longer of the two processes, especially with these single ply style yarns. You can't really just grab the end and pull it tight. You have to really kind of baby it a little bit. Because if you pull it and the yarn falls apart, you're kind of done. You can fix it by sewing and picking up stitches and stuff, but it's always a little nerve-wracking to kind of leave that to chance. So, all right, I'm gonna set these guys aside and open some yarn. All right. So I mentioned at the start that I wanted to get some of this sheep's yarn, and let me see here. I got one more. I've made some amigurumi from this. They turned out really professional looking and just look really nice. And so I wanted to use some of this. I had some colors on hand, but actually not very many. And so I went to Wool Warehouse's website. They have a fantastic selection. They are one of the So it drives me a little bit crazy when I know that there are more colors, but the website doesn't show them as out of stock. And so then I don't know if there's a separate listing or if they don't, like if they were discontinued or something like that. And so I really like Wool Warehouse because they list all the colors and then they're just, they've got like a red label on them if they're out of stock. And so you can see all the colors and they're just listed as out of stock. Where when I went to some of these other websites, they had like 4 colors and it was like, all right, well, are these ones on sale or why are they separated? Do they not care? Like, are they only ever going to have those 4 colors? What's going on? So I ended up going to 2 different websites to get the colors that I wanted. And even then I didn't get all the colors I wanted because nobody had enough selection. But Wool Warehouse is temporarily not shipping internationally. With everything going on all around the world, international shipping is really high. And so they've just opted not to do that. I think they're also working with a smaller staff right now. So they're just not fulfilling international orders right now. And they are out of the UK. So I looked around for domestic suppliers. The only place I could find that I recognized the name of and had anything that I wanted in stock was yarn.com, which is run by Webs. And so I was able to get this color called Smoky Quartz, which is the gray that I was after. I ended up getting 2 balls of that. Here's the other one. So I've got these 2 balls of Smoky Quartz. They are dye lot matched, though they look slightly different to me under this light. But they are the same dye lot, and so that's good that they matched the dye lot when they shipped them. But yeah, so I got these 2 balls. Took a surprisingly long time for them to ship, but once they shipped, the shipping was reasonably fast. That was the other thing that I really liked about Wool Warehouse, and this, we're not sponsored. I have no affiliation with them. I just really like their website and their like shipping rates and everything. These took a while to ship, And then they showed up reasonably quick, but they were domestic. Like, they shipped from, I don't know, the East Coast somewhere, I believe. I feel like I should have had them in 3 days. And you know, even if it's 2 days to ship it, like like even USPS ships most of the country in a day or two. So inside a week, I feel like is a totally reasonable expectation. I know things are a little shaken up with staffing, you know, around the country and whatnot, but like inside a week seems like a reasonable expectation for yarn to show up domestically. The yarn that when I normally order from Wool Warehouse, I have it inside a week, and that's international shipment, so it clears customs and everything. I think domestically in the UK they offer same day delivery, or possibly next day delivery, for not very much money. So they've got their logistics, I think, a little bit better sorted out. And I know domestic shipping inside the UK is easier because it's a relatively small sized country. You can get pretty much anywhere in a day or so. So that's the Smoky Quartz from Webb's. And then the other place that I was able to order from was also out of the UK. It was called Lovecrafts. They did not have as good a selection, but they did have more of the colors that I was looking for than Webb's did. They did ship pretty quick. And the yarn made it to the United States and cleared customs almost immediately, but they used a courier service that I wasn't super familiar with, and they took forever to get it from the courier service, like processed into the postal service and then to my house. It started, like, it entered the country via Missouri, and then it went to Chicago, and then it went back to Missouri, and then maybe it went back to Chicago, and then finally to Central Illinois, but it was really long and like ping-ponged all around, and I don't know what the deal was. But it did finally show up, and so the colors that I got from that are coral, moonstone, and brown agate. So the stone-washed are all stone-themed names, and then the river-washed are all named after rivers. They're basically the same yarn. They have the same fiber content, the same, it's the same weight yarn, it's the same weight and yardage and all of that. The only difference, as far as I can tell, is that the stone washed is a color plus white, and river washed is 2 colors. So they have like a pink that's a pink and like a coral mixed, where the stone washed would be pink and white or coral and white. That, as far as I can tell, is the only difference between the two, and you can use them and intermix them in any combination, and they should work well together. These yarns, just real quick, I know I've gone through these way back when. They're 50-gram balls. They're 130 meters. They're listed as a sport weight yarn, 78% cotton, 22% acrylic. They say that you can wash them in warm water, and it looks like maybe line dry them, no bleach. And it looks like it says you can iron them. I guess that's because it's mostly acrylic. Looks like it says a warm iron, not a hot iron. They recommend a 3 to 3.5 mil. Oh, sorry. Oh, that's both of them. 3 to 3.5 millimeter needle or crochet hook. That's what they're recommending here. This yarn is becoming more and more popular. I've seen it being used in a lot more patterns, especially amigurumi. And I've been really happy with the few things that I've made out of it. So, let's see. We've got a couple questions, and I don't want to lose them before they fall off the chat here, because I've got my chat blown up. Anna says that she had the same experience with shipping from Webb's. The shipping was fast once it was shipped, but it took 5 to 7 days for them to get it shipped. Yeah, that was roughly what I was seeing. That it just took so long for them to process the order through their system. And maybe we're all spoiled a little bit by Amazon where we just expect things to just show up immediately, but it's an online store. I don't even know. Webs might have a physical location, but I think their primary business is as an online store. And so I think as an online store, they should process their orders a little bit faster. And like I said, maybe that's just me being a little bit spoiled by companies that have better logistics, um but yeah, it just seemed like it took a really long time for it to actually get shipped. Um Xana's saying every time she's ordered, they've shipped from the warehouse in the States, but mostly order paint box, their house brand. Maybe that's why. I did not realize that they had a warehouse in the States. I assumed that the courier service was because they shipped, because it was a shipping method that I've never seen before. I assumed that it shipped out of the UK, but I could be totally wrong about that. They could have shipped it out of their warehouse. I'd have to go back and look at my tracking information again, but
Wait, webs?
no, Lovecrafts, which I know is a UK entity, but seems like they might have warehouse presence in the States. That would make sense because it did seem like it processed really fast. In that case, then they should get a different courier service, because if they're using that, or mail handling service or whatever, because they really made a mess of that. They could have just shipped it USPS from Missouri, and it would have just jumped over to the Missouri hub and then into central Illinois. Instead, their courier service sent it to at least Chicago once, and then back to Missouri. So it didn't make a whole lot of sense. But anyway, I got the yarn that I needed. These colors here are destined to be a fox. I don't know if I need 2 of each color, but because I was already struggling to get it and it was a whole thing, I just ordered a little extra. They're actually not super expensive. Couple dollars a ball, I believe, is roughly what they cost. And then these guys are, again, destined to be that bunny rabbit with a pink tutu. I had some pink on hand. I don't know if I brought it down with me. Might be in this bag here. Yeah, this is the pink for the tutu and the ballet slippers. And so those will be a cute set together. So that's what I'm working on with that. I did notice, though, they did they did ship the yarn in this little organza bag. The only companies that I've had do that are out of the UK. I don't know if that's a more common thing or if that's like one stole it from the other and they're both in the UK. Like, I don't know, but all of my yarn has come.
It could be that they can't use a plastic inner bag or something.
That could be. They might not be allowed under UK rules to ship in plastic bags as part of an environmental reasoning. And so they may have shipped to that. I know you have the option of skipping the organza bag when you order from Wool Warehouse, because I noticed that showed up like as a little checkbox that you can click in the corner. Some people must not have wanted it. But I guess then they just throw your yarn loose into the mailing bag, or maybe they put it in a box. I don't know. Let's see. Joyce asked, what have I made from the yarn? So from this sheep's yarn, I made a really cute little giraffe rag doll. I think the name of the designer is Ala Sasha. And there's a whole bunch of these ragdoll patterns. And so yeah, there's just I made the giraffe. It was a lot of fun. It was some like mosaic type crochet. And So yeah, that's that's what I've made, and I really liked how it turned out. I think there's pictures of it maybe on my Ravelry. Um,
You never friended me on Ravelry, so
oh, apparently I've never friended my husband on Ravelry, so he can't actually look them up. You should be able to find me as a user though. It's EXPTS in crafting because I ran out of no of letters for the user name. Catcraft asked where in central Illinois. We are in the Peoria area. I won't really be any more specific than that, but that's roughly the area we're in. It's cool that you are also in central Illinois. And then Xana said 10 packs from Lovecrafts are shipped in plastic wrap. So that's good to know. Maybe it's just a way that they sort out their yarns for shipping. Like maybe it just makes it easier if they keep them in some sort of vessel and the organza bags just work for that.
I don't see it on Ravelry.
Not on Ravelry. I'll have to dig up some pictures. I know we took pictures.
I can't find them. I was
They're with all of the pictures with the we did some pictures with like a granny square and a duck and Eeyore. It should be with that because it was all for the same person. So they should be roughly from that time period. I think there's pictures online. If not, I'll scrounge up some pictures. But I made this cute little giraffe rag doll, and I really liked how it turned out. It was probably one of the only amigurumi that I actually felt like could be sold very easily in a store, like a high-end boutique, like baby store. And that somebody would actually buy it. It just turned out really nice, and it just had such a nice professional look to it. And I made that little giraffe, and this person that I worked with really liked it, and she had me make a red dog for her daughter, because she was really into Clifford. And I did, and she's been carrying this doll around for probably 2-ish years at this point. And still I don't even work with her anymore, but she still sends me pictures. And so when she sent it recently, I said, what else is she into? Like, she's probably not still super into Clifford, but still has her Clifford. And so right now she's into ballet and bunnies. And so we're gonna ballet, bunnies, and bugs were the things. And so I'm gonna make her a ballet rabbit. So Anna's asking what else have I made from mosaic crochet. Do I know of any mosaic crochet patterns to use with mini skein kits? There is a really cool hat that could be used with a mini skein kit. I'm trying to think of what it is. I'd have to look up and see if I could find it. There was a really neat looking hat that would work well with a mini skein, though usually mini skeins are fingering weight, and this was definitely for worsted weight yarn. I'm trying to think of what other mosaic crochet. The shawl that I just finished is kind of mosaic crochet. It's got some elements of mosaic where you're working with 2 different colors. This is worked in different rows. What was the name of that pattern that I just finished? The Ricci, the pink one with the 5 different colors. Moonwake. The Moonwake shawl worked really well with a mini skein kit. It needed 100 grams of solid and then 100-gram mini skein kit, but it worked really well for that. And that's similar to mosaic crochet, though I don't know is technically mosaic. It's just a 2-color pattern where you end up working back and forth with multiple colors. But yeah. So, all right, I'm going to open. Let's see. I've got a couple other things to open for you guys. Okay. All right. So while I realized that I didn't have any gray yarns to work with, I had all of these different color options. And nothing that I actually wanted to use. And so I went back to Premier and picked up some of their Premier Everyday Anti-Pilling DK weight yarn. In just kind of a variety of colors that I thought would be useful. And so I've got a bunch of that. I've opened Premier DK, or Premier Everyday DK a couple of times on stream. I'll go through the stats real quick for you if you haven't seen that. But my goal here was to get a couple of gray yarns on hand, and then just to have some colors and variety on hand. My interest in amigurumi is kind of spiked again, I guess. And so I wanted just to have some stuff on hand. And then I got kind of a variety pack of grays here. So let's see what we've got. This color up, well, let's do stats real quick. They're all going to be the same. This is the anti-pilling acrylic, so it's 100% acrylic. Comes in 100-gram balls, 273 yards or 250 meters. It's a number 3 lightweight or DK weight yarn. They recommend a US 6, which is a 4mm knitting needle, or a 4mm crochet hook, which is a G hook. It says machine wash, tumble dry, warm. Sorry, machine wash, warm, tumble dry. Looks like they're not recommending an iron. And this color here is Fossil. So that's Fossil. This is Ash, which is very nearly the same color, though you can see that there's a slight brownness to the ash color, I think. It's really hard to tell. They're very close. This color is Dove. This is a second skein of Dove. I'm going to set that aside. And this is Charcoal, which has a definite blue undertone to it. So those are the 4 different grays that I picked up. I think I took a stab in the dark and chose the one that I thought would be the best for the... I kind of gave myself 2 options with the amigurumi bunny in the tutu. I wanted to make sure that I had this DK weight, and then I had the stone washed on hand, so I could do it in either. Neither will go to waste if I don't do it in the other, but I kind of took a stab and guessed that Dove was the color I was going to want, and it was a pretty good choice. It's a nice, like, medium dark gray. So those were the grays that I ordered. And then I just picked up a couple of other, like, colors that I thought would be useful in some amigurumi. This is Turquoise. This is Garnet. Nice dark red. Peacock, which is a really deep blue teal kind of color. This is Aqua. Really pretty light sky blue. And Linen, which I've mentioned before. I've had a hard time finding a really good Caucasian skin tone. And so I ordered this hoping that it would work. And it actually looks like it will probably work pretty well. It doesn't have any... Well, maybe it has a little bit of pink undertone to it. I actually didn't think I was going to like this yarn, this Karen's birthday suit at all. But because it looks very, very pink when it's balled up. In fact, I bought it... I don't want to say I bought it under protest, but I called ahead to the store. I said, what do you have that's roughly in skin tone? The owner said, I've got one called Karen's birthday suit. It's the person that it's designed, like the person who designed it, it's their skin tone. And so she said, it's pretty perfect. And I got there and I looked at it and I was like, I don't know about that, but I had made the trip and I wanted to buy something that I could use. And so I went away with that thinking I wasn't really sure that it was going to work out. And it ended up being perfect. It really worked up very differently than it looked in the skein. And so this looks pretty pale, but might be just fine. And so that's what I picked up from Premiere. Nothing too earth-shattering here, but just wanted to have some kind of basic colors that I could do some of this amigurumi work with while I'm playing around with that. So I do have quite a bit of DK weight just around, but these were some of the colors that were lacking in my collection. So you'll notice I didn't get any greens. One of the colors that I have a ton of navy blue, and I have a ton of hunter green. So I didn't get any of those colors. All right, the last thing that I've got to show you is, like I said, I went through, what I really needed was, interfacing, and everybody is totally sold out of interfacing. Except that Hobby Lobby closed very shortly after our state issued, like, the stay-at-home order, and they didn't really have the opportunity to sell out of mask material. And so I went in and they had all of their stock in interfacing, and I bought a couple of yards of what I needed. And while I was there, I obviously stuck my head down the yarn and crochet areas and realized that they had a ton of stuff on clearance. And so I picked up some stuff, and I'm just going to show you what I got. I don't know that this is on clearance everywhere or that you'll be able to get the same prices or whatnot, but this is a little, well, actually pretty good size yarn duffel bag. It's covered in sheep, and the sheep are made out of either balls of yarn or like knit patterns. And it says yarn and stitch and sew and knit all over it. And so they're pretty cute little yarn duffel bag. The inside is polka dots and gray. And then this was not part of the sale, but it was the matching little bag. And so I just paid full price for this. It was $3.99, so it wasn't the end of the world. This bag, though, was $20 originally and was on clearance for $5. So I was pretty happy with that deal. It does have a grommet and this end, so that you can run your yarn through the bag and leave your yarn in the bag, and not have to open up the little duffel bag. So if you were, for example, on a flight and you carried this on as your carry-on, you could have your yarn over here and the rest of your carry-on stuff on the side.
Does that mean your project is stuck to the bag then and outside of the bag?
Yeah, so it does mean that your yarn runs through. It's one of the reasons that I never really cared for grommeted bags. But what you would do is you would just take it and either dump it back into the bag, and you just have like a tail of yarn that looped around. The zipper does work from this side, and so you would just basically all but zip up your yarn, and you would have a tail of yarn that went back into the package. But it basically acts as a yarn bowl out in the world where you wouldn't necessarily take a yarn bowl. It prevents your yarn from like rolling all around, and so people use bags like this in their car and on an airplane and things like that, because, or like even if you traveled every day on the train, you wouldn't want your ball of yarn able to escape in any fashion, because you don't want it rolling around in public places. So you sacrifice like the 6 inches of yarn being exposed for not ever having your yarn be able to leave. So that's the idea there. I just thought it was a cute little bag. I like bags, and then I also travel with an excessive amount of yarn. I almost never actually crochet. Well, like if I'm not driving and I'm in the car, I might crochet, but no matter what, like this weekend I went and stayed with family, and I took projects, and I think I touched my project one time for about 20 minutes, and that was really all I did. I'm usually too worn out to crochet at night when I'm traveling and too busy during the day to actually get any opportunity to do so. So, that's that. Let's see, what else did I get? Oh, so they did have a number of yarn bowls on sale, so I picked this one up. Their yarn bowls were actually reasonably priced. This one was $12.99. I paid $3.24 for it. It's just basically a flower pot with legs and a swoop cutout for a yarn guide. But it's a yarn bowl. It's cute. I don't like this one quite as much as I like the other one that I got, which is over here. And I'm actually, like, I brought it with and, like, traveled with it. I paid the same for this. This one also cost the same originally. I just like this one a little bit better. I like the light pink and the kind of leaf/knit look to the outside of it. So, I'm actually pretty surprised that I didn't ship this. So I've been using this relatively thin bag here to carry it around with me because I've gotten to the point where I'm working on a pretty sizable blanket, and I thought it would be nice to have the yarn bowl with me, and what I did was crash the bag into a post outside my sister's house, and I thought for sure that I'd ship the bowl, but it seems to have held up. I think that's probably just luck, though. It is definitely just a ceramic bowl. So that was the other ceramic bowl. They're nice just to have around. It's nice to have just a yarn container for just something to contain your yarn while you're working with it. It just holds a ball of yarn. It doesn't really do much anything else. I got this little trinket jar. It's got a little ball of yarn on top and just holds whatever. It's just a little lidded jar. It was just in the yarn section. Originally was $6. I got it for $1.50. So, just kind of a cute little thing. Like I said, most of this was just accessories. I'm going to get everything out of the bag and then I'll go through it all here. But of course I did get a little bit of yarn. It was not clearance yarn, but again, I was after gray yarns. Once I realized that I had no gray yarn really on hand at all, I kind of stocked up a bit because that was very frustrating. Especially given the fact that I have, like, I don't know, 10,000 skeins of yarn over there. To not have a color was extraordinarily weird. Alright, so I think that's it. There were just some weird things that I picked up because they were on clearance and seemed like they might be useful at some point in time. So these are upholstery pins. I've reupholstered, like, the dining chairs in my house, but I don't do much upholstery. But they looked like nice, heavy-duty pins. I'm going to see if I can get them open here. They were $6.99. I got them for $1.70. They're pretty heavy-duty looking, and they just seemed like they might be useful to have around. So they're a nice, thick pin. They're 2.5 inches. And they have kind of a blunt tip to them. So I figured they might be useful for pinning pieces together or holding things while I was doing amigurumi or for blocking. So I picked those up on clearance. I got some ribbon just to have around for crafts. 2 of them are pineapple ribbons, and then one is succulents and cactuses, and the other is unicorns. They were all 75 cents, or I think this one was $1, but just nice to have some options on hand. I got these really odd ergonomic knitting needles. I'll see if I can get one of these packages open. They're from Prim. For those of you who've watched for a while, you know that I don't knit. I have learned to cast on, and I've done a little tiny bit of knitting, but not much. These are triangle shaped, and they lock together. They've got this like weird little connector at the end, and that allows it. You put them end to end, and then they hold together. Well, not particularly well if you don't snap them, I guess. There's that one, and there's that one. All right, so they do hold together. And they're triangle shaped, I guess, for ergonomics. But I've thought about picking it back up and trying to learn a little bit more. And so I picked up a couple of sizes that I know are roughly in the ballpark of something usable. These are a 7mm and a 4mm knitting needle. So, and I paid less than $2 for each set, and they were just shy of $8, and they were $6.50 and $7.50, and so I paid $1.62 and $1.87 for them. So, a good deal on those. Let's see. CZ saying hi and late to the party. That's okay. We're just going through a few of the things that I picked up at Hobby Lobby, but you're always able to go back and watch the rest of the stream once YouTube gets it processed and up. I think they took a really long time on the last couple live streams to get them processed, so that has nothing to do with us. It's just YouTube doing YouTube's thing. So I guess bear with it, but you are able to go back and watch all of our live streams, including the one that happens tonight, at any point once it processes. These were iron-on appliques. They're just little things that you can iron on to something else, and I just thought they were cute, and there's probably something that I can use them for. The only thing that you'd have to keep in mind if you wanted to use these on a crocheted blanket is that they need to be ironed on, which means that it would have to be ironable. So you'd have to be putting them onto a natural fiber, so either wool or cotton. You couldn't put them onto an acrylic or acrylic blend because you'd probably melt it trying to set the glue. And then that being said, I don't know how well they would stick because the stitches might not like hold very well. So, I just thought these were cute. This is a little fox. This is a cactus with a flower. A jellyfish, a narwhal, and a cute little mermaid tail. And so I don't have anything specific in mind for them. They were just cute little appliques that I can use for some sort of gift or project. And then, the last thing that I picked up was this little yarn cutter, which is like a flower shape. Well, it's like a circular blade with a flower shape over top that sort of protects the blade from being able to interact with your fingers. And I put one in this bag, and I was able to use it to cut around a knot. This comfy cotton blend continues to be full of knots. I'm trying to find the little thing. I've got one free. So this is the little cutter thing, and you can't get your fingers in there, but you can put the yarn in there and it'll just slice it. So it's just kind of like a little safety cutter. But my scissors keep kind of disappearing on me, and so I thought it might be nice to just have a couple of these, and they were 75 cents. So originally $3, and I got them for 75 cents, so it was, seemingly worth it. And then I picked up some gray yarns. Again, just to kind of round out my amigurumi stash and just my project stash. Now I have an abundance of gray yarn, so that'll make me happy to know that I have stuff on site. This was Hobby Lobby. I love this cotton. I've had a couple people ask me how it compares to like the Pima and stuff. On initial impressions, it's not as soft. but it is less fluffy on the outside. So it will probably make a cleaner looking project, but I mean it's perfectly reasonably soft. It's probably not quite as soft as the new Pima from Lion brand, but feels like a very nice cotton in general. Like I said, it just has kind of a cleaner outside. There is quite a bit of fluff and hair on the outside, um, but not as much as the Pima had quite a bit on it. Um, and so I picked that up, and then I grabbed a couple more Must Be Merino. I had some of this on hand, and I used it all up on a blanket and a scarf. And so this is a nice, pretty robust DK weight yarn. So got those on hand, and then I also came across this yarn, which I'd never seen before. I'm pretty sure it's new. Reminds me a lot of, there's a yarn called, I think, Color Play or Fair Play or something like that. It looks like ribbon candy. It might actually, well, the colorway I think is called Weekender. I don't think I have it around. But this yarn is called Arabella. It is a cotton acrylic blend, 55% cotton, 45% acrylic. It's a 100-gram ball, 105 yards. They are calling it a number 5 bulky weight yarn, though it is sort of a roving style with like a thin thread wrapped around it, so I'm not exactly sure how it would work up, but it might still be able to go through the circular knitter. And they are recommending a 5.5 millimeter knitting needle or a 6.5 millimeter crochet hook, which is a K hook. So yeah, this was an interesting yarn. It's a color changing yarn. Let me tell you the colorways here. This is Whimsical Whirlwind. This is Bejeweled. And this is Sea Breeze. And I know that they look roughly like they're the same color. But they are all different. If you look inside, this one is all teals and greens and sort of sea colors. It looks like it's probably a striping yarn. It would probably make a really nice summer like sweater. You know, the short sleeve, like open, lacy looking sweaters. I think it would look really nice. Would probably also make a very nice wrap. It's a little hefty for something like light and lacy, but I think well, okay, I want to rephrase. I think it will work well for something lacy, but it's still going to be on the heavy side because the yarn is heavy. So it'll have a little bit more oomph to it. So it might actually keep you a bit warm at night. Where a lot of the stuff in the summer you see is super fine and lacy and open, and that's just decorative. So I think this would be like functionally a little bit warm and might not be great in the middle of the day, but could be a really nice like evening type of thing. Bejeweled is this really awesome dark purpley blue, and then there's teal and green. There's some gold in here. Really deep, cool jewel tones. I really like this purple in here. I would love for my hair to be that color right now. A really nice dark purpley blue. And then Whimsical Whirlwind is very beachy. It's got light blue, kind of a blue gray. There's kind of a medium blue. There's this sandy looking color in here. There also appears to be some sort of like cotton candy colors. There's like a light pink and like a purple in here. So I think that they were probably going for unicorny sea type of colors, maybe mermaidy. I don't know. It's they're Whimsical Whirlwind is not a bad name for it. It's very Princess Castle in a Cloud type of feel to it. So very light, pastel-y, fun colors. So that is what I picked up. And I think that's everything that I've got to share with you guys. I guess we should switch it over and see if anybody has questions. Looks like I've got a couple comments that I can take a look at. Bridget said, "Looks like a fun Hobby Lobby trip." It was a good trip. I always like when I go in and I see all these orange stickers, because I can kind of just wander around and there's always some really interesting things that I might not have bought at full price, but like I probably would not have bought this bowl at $13. $13 is not an unreasonable price for a yarn bowl, but $3 is pretty hard to pass up. And so there's a lot of that where you got to kind of make a call, like, do I really want this? But it's $3. I'm going to get it. But yeah, it was fun. And let's see. Joyce says, as a lifelong crocheter, it took me 3 tries during 2018-19 to pick up and love knitting continental style. Keep trying. So she's referring to me saying I kind of gave up on knitting a bit. I learned to cast on. I learned to knit a few rows. My problem felt like to me that like it felt like something that I could put a lot of effort into, and I wasn't great at it. I didn't know all the terminology, but there were so many things when I tried to learn to knit that I wanted to just crochet, that it felt like I could take 3 or 4 weeks and learn to make a washcloth, or I could make like 3 shawls. And so I kind of just put it on the back burner and it sort of stayed there. So I would like to give it another try. But it's one of those things that every once in a while I think I should try that again. And then I see 11 other projects in crochet that I could be doing. And it's just sort of a balance of how much time I want to put into knitting when there are a million crochet projects I could work on. So, there's certainly no shortage, but I haven't found the project that is going to make me learn to knit yet. There've been a couple of shawls where I was like, ooh, I'd really like to learn to knit so I could do that. But, I haven't found the project that's going to finally seal the deal, and I'm going to do it. But thank you for the encouragement. It's good to know that there are other people who have done sort of a similar thing where it's like I could just crochet, but I'm gonna finally put in the effort and learn to knit. So yeah. If anyone else has questions, comments, wants to talk about yarn, wants to see more of something that I showed earlier, see something on the table they'd like to hear a little bit more about, let me know. Otherwise we'll think about wrapping up for the evening, and I'm not sure what we're going to stream about next week. I don't plan on doing any more yarn shopping before then. So we'll see what happens. Maybe I'll make some progress on the Amigurami bunny, and that I'll have to share. But yeah, otherwise I'm working on baby blankets and again, a little doll that I just wanted to make. I kind of like the look of some of the Amigurumi dolls, and so I found one that I liked, and I'm working on that too. I won't make the same mistake though. Whoops. Oh, there goes the mermaid. On the mermaid, when I did all of the decreases, so I started on the top of her head and worked down and had to do all of the decreases on her like face. And like cheek area, you can see all of my decreases have this like little bulge to them, and so I need to look up some techniques on reducing that. But it sort of makes her look like she's got bad skin. She got kind of like a bumpy face. So, Stamping Bandit suggesting Tunisian, which is sort of in between knit and crochet. I've done a couple of things in Tunisian. I'm not great at it, but I can do some basic stitches. I think I've done 2 projects in Tunisian, maybe. What I'd really like to get better at is there's a crochet designer who does Tunisian short rows. Um, and those are pretty interesting. She actually just does them with a regular crochet hook because the rows are so short. And I'd like to work on some of her shawls because they're really cool, but Tunisian is slow. And so, well, slower than I crochet anyway. And so those take a little bit more time. Sometimes it's not all about speed, but sometimes I'm just, trying to work through yarns.
So
Um,
you actually like the book reviews?
yeah, Bridget's asking about show more of the books. Well, not surprisingly, I guess your comment is surprising to myself and my husband because the book reviews that we've done have not done particularly well as videos. So it's really good to hear that somebody is really enjoying them. We did a number of them. So a lot of the book reviews that I've done have involved books from the library. And I think the library is back open for being able to check books out again. So I could potentially get a handful of crochet books. I probably have some on hand that I own though that I could review as well. Um, but yeah, I could maybe drag some books out and show what's going on with those. I should do the explanation. So there's 4 books on Amazon. And there's some really confusing Amazon reviews that go around them. And so I actually ordered all 4 of them and I can explain why people are upset and how the company messed up in naming and like explaining what was going on with those books. Um because they did a really strange thing when they published them. And so I can share that with you guys. Kat's asking if I do invisible decrease. I do. I don't know that I'm doing it right, but I do attempt to do an invisible decrease, and they still show weirdly. I might be decreasing using the wrong loops. So the invisible decrease that I know how to do is instead of picking up, when you do the decrease, you just use one of the loops, and so maybe I'm supposed to be using the front loops and I'm using the back. But I still get this weird little like lump, and so maybe I'm still not doing it quite correctly. I think I just need to go back and look through some YouTube videos and find out what I'm doing wrong. Because I definitely have seen a lot of amigurumi and none of them have the acne problem that my doll has. The other thing is that I should have worked that doll bottom up, and instead I worked it top down. And if I'd worked it bottom up, all of the lumps and bumps and bad decreases and whatever else would all be hidden under the hair instead of visible on the face. The really nice, beautiful stitches are all hidden underneath the hair right now. And so all of my lumpy, bad decreases are all visible. So it's not really all that bad. Most people have not even noticed it. It's just something that's bothering me. So, anyway, on that note, I think I'm tired and we'll probably wrap the stream up unless anybody has anything else that they want to talk about. It's been a really long week already and it's only Tuesday, so Not anything particularly bad, just been a long week already. So, yeah. I think we'll probably go ahead and wrap up for the evening. Thank you all for joining me and commenting and asking questions. That really does help move the stream along. So, lots of good chatter tonight. And good questions. So that helps drive what's going on stream. If anyone has suggestions about a live stream for next week, like maybe talking about some of the books or other ideas, let me know. You can always put those in the comment section. You can message me on Facebook or Instagram. You can find me on either of those platforms at Experiments in Crafting. You can even seek me out on Ravelry if you'd like, or something like that. All sorts of places you can find me and send me a message. So, yeah, if you've got suggestions or things that you'd like to see or questions just about nothing related to the stream or anything, but you just have a crochet question, find me on one of those places or leave a comment in one of the videos and I'll do my best to help you out. But with that being said, we stream on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Central Time. And I hope to see you next week on Tuesday for the live stream. If you're interested in getting notifications, you can hit subscribe and then click the little bell and change it from personalized to all so that you get notifications when we go live or when we post a video or anything like that. You would know about it. If we're going to cancel a stream, I usually post on Facebook, Instagram, and in the community tab on YouTube. So it should be in one of those locations. If you don't see a cancellation notice, it's probably that we're having some sort of technical difficulty and we're just running a few minutes behind. So otherwise, I hope to see you all next week at 8 Central Time and have a great rest of your week. Thanks for watching. Bye.